Okay, first graders, I have a question for you. What does it mean when I say I want half of something? What does that mean? What is half? Do you have some ideas? Well, how many of you were thinking half means one of two equal parts? Maybe that's kind of the idea you were thinking. Maybe you had another idea. But that's what half is. When you have half of something, you have one out of two equal parts. So let's look at some examples of half. And we'll talk more about half later in the year as well. But I want to do this much with you today. Okay? Let's say I have a square. Okay? If I have a square and I want to cut it in half, I'm going to cut it in two pieces that are the same size. There's more than one way to do that with a square. I chose to do it this way because I think that's the easiest to see. That I could fold this over and it would be the same on both sides. In fact, if I take a little piece of paper and fold it in half, that's exactly what happens. I'm folding it on top of itself, so we only see one of the two equal parts. If I open it back up, I see I've created a line down the middle that breaks this little rectangle into two equal parts. Okay, so when you say you want half of something, you're saying you want one out of the two equal parts. Let's do a couple more examples. Okay, here I have a triangle. If I want half my triangle, I would take one of the two equal parts. Okay, now it doesn't only work with shapes, it also works with numbers. So here I have 4 paper clips. If I'm going to keep half of them, that means I'm going to put it into two equal parts, 2 and 2. And I'll keep half, and the other half can go away. So we just saw that half of 4 is 2. Hey, it's doing a doubles fact in reverse. Let's do a few more of those double facts in reverse. What is half of 10? If I break it into two equal parts, I would have 5 and 5, right? What is half of 20? Break it in two equal parts, I'd get 10 and 10. You with me so far? Okay, well, let me ask you this then. What is half of 12? What does 12 equal? 6 plus 6. Good. The doubles fact to get to 12 is a 6. Why do you think that's the number I picked? Remember, we're talking about time right now and clocks. And if I look at a clock, the biggest number I have when I'm looking at my hours is the 12. Okay, so there's my 12. And half of 12 is 6, right? So I get to the 6 going halfway around the clock from the 12 to the 6. And then I get the other half going from 6 back up to 12. We talked yesterday about, or last time, we talked about, or we learned about the hour hand. And we learned that the hour hand points to the numbers. And as it points to the numbers, we can see the time changing. So we have a 12, we have a 6, we have a 3, we have a 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we've learned that if we have the hour hand pointing to the 12, the time is 12 o'clock. We learned that if we have the hour hand pointing to the 7, the time is 7 o'clock. That's right. But what if the hour hand isn't pointing to one of the numbers? Remember, the hour hand has to be moving. It has to be able to get from the 1 to the 2, and 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 5, 6. It has to be able to move all the way around during the day. So that tells me that at different times, it's going to be pointing to different places. So again, we know that if it's pointing to the 1, it's 1 o'clock. I'm going to leave that there. And I'm going to put another hour hand just to help us out for a minute, pointing to the 2. That's 2 o'clock. But there's time that happened as the hour hand went from the 1 to the 2. And you know what? It can be cut in half as well. So look at the shape I just drew. If I cut that in half, if I put it there, I could fold that on top of itself, couldn't I? It would be the same on either side. I went halfway between the 1 and the 2. I'm going to just leave that halfway mark there. I've created a new hour hand. This hour hand is halfway between the 1 and the 2. So it's not 1 o'clock, it's not 2 o'clock, but because it hasn't gotten to 2 o'clock yet, it is 1 something. What is that something? Well, we'll look at another hand a little bit more later, but remember how I told you halfway between 12 or half of 12 is 6? There's another hand that we'll work with later that would be pointing to the 6 right now. When the hour hand is halfway between the numbers, the minute hand is halfway around the clock. We have talked how straight up, when we are looking at the minute hand is straight up, or when the hour hand is right on a number, we call that o'clock, 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 and show it with zeros. Well, there are 60 minutes in an hour, and half of 60, let's think with this. What's half of 6? 3 and 3, right? So half of 60 is 30. So to go from 1 hour to the next hour, when we're halfway there, the hour hasn't changed yet, so I keep the 1, and I put 30 minutes. The time on this clock is 1:30, or half past 1 o'clock. Half past 1 o'clock. Let's look at another example. Okay, I'm going to put an hour hand, and this time the hour hand is going to point between the 5 and the 6. It's not pointing to the 5, but it hasn't gotten to the 6 yet. It's halfway there. It's half past the 5 on its way to 6. Most of the time, we're looking at the numbers getting bigger. We start at 1 and we go up to 12. But then it starts over. So what happens if my hour hand is halfway between 12 and 1? Is it half past 1 o'clock? Or is it half past 12 o'clock? It is half past 12 o'clock. That's right, because we went from the 12 to the 1. That's where it goes. That's the direction it goes. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. We're going to practice that today, and we'll keep practicing it in the future as well. Good luck.